Mostly on my channel I talk about games from all types of genres, and for a good reason. It's the hobby I spent the most amount of time on. But you might be surprised by this, but I also do like reading. While mostly reading manga and some horror here and there. I started reading manga in 2021 and the ones I've been reading have been really fantastic. But this year I would read what would become one of my all-time favorites. The manga in question being Dandadan. Before going into this manga, I was not sure how I was going to feel about it or had any real clue about the story, other than a part of the main story revolves around finding someone's balls. But I did see some really cool panels from manga and decided, yeah, why not? I just read it on a random Sunday because I had nothing else to do, and I quickly became addicted to it and I absolutely loved it. This was one of the finest pieces of work I've ever read. This was forged by the gods. So strap in folks as I try and explain what makes this manga so godly. The manga starts with our second main character, Okarun, at his school. Okarun is, to say simply, a nerd. He loves science, he's into nerd culture, and as such he gets bullied. Our other main character, Momo, just broke up with her boyfriend after he had been pretty terrible to her. She spots Okarun getting bullied, and despite not knowing who he is, she pretends to be a friend of his to scare away the bullies. Okarun, being shocked that someone would actually help them, wants to talk more to Momo. But Momo, however, she is not interested as she wants to be left alone. Then the both of them start to talk about aliens and ghosts, with both of them having a different opinions on them. Momo believes in ghosts but not aliens, while Okarun believes in aliens but not ghosts. Momo then challenges Okarun to go to the haunted subway alone so he can prove to him that ghosts are real. In short story, yes, ghosts are real, as Okarun sees a grandma ghost and gets possessed by her. Then both of them get captured by aliens who then try to impregnate Momo. Then Momo gets them out with her supernatural powers. They travel to her grandma's house to seek help, with Okarun still being possessed by her grandma, with him getting new powers. They challenge the Turbo Granny to a marathon contest, and after a long run they manage to defeat her, and now she's a cat. And also Okarun's balls are missing, so now they have to look for them. It is absolutely insane how 0 to 100 this manga can go, and just how absurd it gets. Like, these chapters alone, there's just so much happening, but that's why I love it so much. It is so unpredictable and they can never tell where it's going. One day they can fight an alien invasion, and next day they can fight Godzilla. So the most important part of the story is finding Okarun's balls and trying to learn how to use their powers and abilities more effectively. Okarun can turn into this super speedy creature that can also fight pretty well, but it takes a lot of energy from him. While Momo has to learn how to use her psychic abilities. When I first saw the cover art for the manga, I really thought this was going to be a completely different character. The design absolutely rocks, especially the teeth. It looks sick. In general, the designs are great, but I think they shine the most when it comes to this creature design. Like, several of the aliens look so rad, which is unique designs. And the grandma ghost, for example, looks terrifying. It's awesome. What also helps these designs are the absolute amazing art. Like, this art is stunning, and this is being drawn weekly? So many panels are filled with the brim with details. I really wish I could have some of these as posters, because I will definitely buy them in a heartbeat. It is generally so impressive. This manga artist managed to create such beautiful drawings on a weekly basis. Again, he must be using dark magic, because this is impressive. The manga is also just hilarious. A big part of it is because of the character dynamics and just the absurdity of the situation. Like I mentioned earlier, how Okarun balls gets taken away from him multiple times. Okarun, what's wrong? My nut. Even at one point an alien uses some form of vacuum and just sucks his ball out, and like, it's just peak comedy. Like, this is just so funny. Another great example of the comedy is in a scene where Momo is working at the restaurant. She's about to open the door to the dress room to go home, but when she turns around, a bunch of these guys are just sitting down to stare at her. It is such a great panel to show the weird humor of the series. Also, there's so many good expressions in the manga. Momo especially cracks me up, either making the silliest face known to man or having Vietnam flashbacks. I think this manga has some of the best cartoon expressions I've ever seen in a manga, at least for a long time. It is so good. The art is absolutely fantastic, and the same could be said for the cast. Momo is such a good main character. She at first seems a bit mean or rude, but seeing her help Okarun from the beginning shows that she does care for others. She might be rude at times to like Okarun and others, but she usually does it for jokes. She is a nice person, wants to help others, she just has a hard time showing it at times. She's also just really funny, like she's absolutely silly. Momo is both funny and silly as she's tough and intimidating. When she gets angry, she will let you know it, not getting pushed up by anyone else. We don't really know much of her family though, outside of her grandma. Her parents are seemingly dead, so she doesn't really have anyone else, which would make sense as to why she can be rude at times, because her grandma can be quite rude too. I guess you could say it's a bit fatherless behavior. Okarun is different from Momo, being a lot less rude, but unlike Momo, isn't as confident. He also starts off as very socially awkward, but gets less and less as time goes on, part of it being able to make more friends, with Momo being his first. Okarun is pretty likable though. He's a great guy, he just lacks confidence at times. He's nerdy, but not a mega one like a certain other character. And also poor Okarun, he gets his balls taken multiple times in the story, like he cannot catch a break. And Momo and Okarun have such a good relationship with each other that's very realistic. They bully each other, they argue, they make jokes at each other's expense, and they also help each other out. It's such a good dynamic, especially when they start feeling attracted to each other, but they just don't know how to tell the other person. Up until recently, it was up in the air if it would be together or not, but finally Okarun did state that he does actually love her. Another character that was one of my favorites was the Turbo Granny. For earlier after Okarun and Momo defeats her, the granny gets a new body as this cat and is now just chilling with them. I think it's just so funny how she went from trying to kill them to, I guess, very cool for now. She's definitely the funniest character in the series. There is one moment where they tell her to go to her computer at the school and open it to find a file, and she just looks at it for a bit and then runs back being like, nah, I don't get this shit. What the fuck is a computer? But the thing is that's also interesting about her, that despite hating the cats and saying how she wants to kill them, she still tries to help them. So like, maybe she actually kind of likes them. At least some of them. Some of them she definitely just hate though. Then there's also Momo's grandma, who is the closest to Momo having a parent. She teaches Momo a lot about these yokais and supernatural stuff. She doesn't have any powers, but she does have a lot of knowledge on the subject. Just like Momo, she can be rude too. Both her and Momo will yell at each other and call each other names. But just like Okarun and Momo, I like the relationship because they're not trying to be malicious against each other. They do both care for each other, it's just that they don't always show it. Also, she has to be the most youngest grandma I've ever seen in anything. I mean, like, she cannot be a day over 50. I mean, like, even that is too old. She can't be more than 40. I don't get it. I also really like Grandma's relationship with Turbo Granny. They're both shown to bully each other and such in the main story, like some form of rival to each other. But we get to see more of the relationship in these bonus chapters. Some of these bonus chapters are dedicated to show some small events happening to Turbo Granny. My favorite one is where Turbo Granny walks in the field and spots a box with a little kitten inside, and with no hesitation brings it back home. Psycho asks Momo where the milk is, with her having no clue where it went. She then spots Turbo Granny taking the milk outside and sneaks behind her to see what she is up to, and then she spots that Turbo Granny is giving the milk to the kitten, saying, "Don't give up on me, okay? You're still alive after all." With then Psycho leaving them quietly alone. It is such a short but sweet scene that shows that Turbo Granny is not really evil. Psycho did state earlier after Turbo Granny was defeated that she was just collecting the souls of girls who died in places they could not go to the afterlife, as she felt sorry for them and didn't want them to be completely alone. There's also another short with Turbo Granny leaving the house with the kitten because Psycho refused to get her a special type of food that was expensive. She's in the field again, but then it starts to snow and it's getting cold. She tells the kitten to go back home so it won't freeze, but the kitten refuses, instead wants to stay with Turbo Granny. But then she hears the voice of Psycho. She has a bag of the food that she told Turbo Granny was too expensive before, and when Turbo Granny asks, "Wasn't it expensive?" Psycho responds, "You bet it was." These bonus content chapters have managed to develop the relationship with these two so much more, starting from hating each other to somewhat being mutual. Underrated part of the series in my opinion, and I hope we get more scenes with them. Aira at first just seemed okay to me, but started to really grow on me and became one of my favorites in the series. She has a similar abilities to Okarun, being able to turn into her other form, which by the way looks sick as well. Aira starts out hating Momo, thinks she's an evil witch, but then she learns she's not. She becomes Okarun and Momo's friend, but she and Momo still insult each other on a regular basis, acting as a sort of fiends. She also wants to be the leader of the group, which leads to some pretty funny scenes, but she is pretty good at it, to be fair. But my favorite part about her character is her relation with her mother. So there's a special yokai that goes around the school area that Aira can only see. She investigates in a big shed outside the school area, and as it turns out, a tall, monstrous lady is waiting for her, saying how she and Aira can finally be together forever again. Aira at first is just absolutely terrified, saying that she's not her daughter, with the lady being infuriating and started attacking her. With Momo and Okarun on the spot, they help Aira, but she's been really badly wounded by the yokai, and that's where we get to see how the yokai turned out the way she is. Her life has been tough, having a lot of different jobs and resorting to prostitution, but all to support her one thing in life she loved, her daughter. No matter how tough it got, she had her daughter, who would always be a beacon of light in her life. But that was unfortunately about to change when a bunch of men raided her apartment, attacking her and taking away her daughter. She tried to run after them, but after a while she realizes that it's too late. Her daughter is gone forever. Not being able to live on, she commits suicide, with her anger being turned into yokai. But then one day she walks on the street and there's Aira, looking at her saying mommy. Walking away with her dad, never seeing her again, but being called mommy never left her mind. So she does the only thing a mother could do, gives her own life. For a yokai to give away the life they will live in purgatory. No heaven or no hell, just complete emptiness. But if it means bringing back Aira to life, she will do it. As she gives her life away and starts apologizing to Aira, Aira wakes up and hugs her and says she loves her, wrapping up my favorite scene in the whole manga. It was just absolute cinema. Gigi was a character I really thought I was going to dislike at first, as it really seemed like they would go with a nice person in front of the person they like, but an asshole behind the scenes, like Dipper and Robbie from Gravity Falls. Both have a love interest towards the same person, act nice when they're around, but when she's not, they hate each other. But thankfully, they do not go that route. Gigi is generally super chill and wanted from the first moment we saw Okarun to be his friend. They just so happen to share the same love interest. He's a very charming character who unfortunately gets possessed by someone, so when he touches cold water, he turns into the so-called evil eye. He does manage to control later on, and Okarun makes a deal with the evil eye to fight him only on every Wednesday. He does also manage to learn some abilities without the form though, so he does prove himself to be very helpful in battle. Mrs. Shrimp is a pretty interesting character, being the first alien the gang befriends. Being at first an antagonist with a group of other aliens, used as a weapon, becomes friends with Momo and the others once they learn that the reason why he did all this was because of money to support his own son, with his son needing milk to survive. So as a sorry, they gave him a cow, and we get the best panel in the manga. But he decides to live on Earth with a new human disguise and help out again when he can. He's an awesome character, I love him. Mamula is the most unique character in the group. She is an alien from a planet far away where there was a big war going on. During intense battles, she alongside her special Godzilla-esque suit was sent to Earth by her mother in order to protect her as the situation got super dire. The suit she's in starts to target Momo and Okarun, and they have this really awesome fight. After winning, she stays in their house, but she can't speak the language. Who do you think you are, intruder? She's a super charming character that had a backstory way more intense than I ever would have expected. Ever since she was a kid, she experienced war, and when she got old enough, she fought alongside others to get freedom for the planet. My favorite part of her is her relation with her mother. Her mother is not her biological mother, just someone who sort of took her in. While she was always calling this lady her mother, the lady always told her that she was not her mom and to stop calling her that. But then, right before the aliens invade the room both the mother and Momo are in, her mother puts her in a teleporter to get her out of there. With Momo saying she loves her and she wants to stay with her mother, she tells her to stop calling mother as she can't handle the tears that's coming from her. An absolutely beautiful moment that showed this strong bond. Her relations with others are pretty good too, with Momo at first not trusting her but then warms up and realizes she's just a good little scrunkly girl. And there's also a possible love interest that I'm not really sure she will even fall in love with. That is Kinta. Kinta is, well, he's special. So you know, like 5 more minutes ago I mentioned Okarun being a nerd, but not really a massive one? Yeah, Kinta, he's the massive one. He started out as a stereotypical nerd, doesn't talk to girls, knows everything about sci-fi, and is terrible at sports. He also thinks highly of himself in front of others to look better, when in reality he thinks pretty low of himself. And his biggest character trait is that he is a pervert. Now, I know that sounds really bad, and it kind of is in the beginning. Making pervert jokes thinking that's what women like when that's not the case at all. At first, he just really annoyed me. Like, here you have this amazing cast of characters, and then boom, you have this guy. But thankfully, he turned out pretty good actually. When his friends are facing danger, he comes to rescue them with no questions asked. Even knowing that he might die, he still takes the risk and helps them majorly, defeating an evil Godzilla robot, which by the way is another amazing fight. He also does cool down in his pervertness, which is a good thing as he got a bit excessive in the beginning. But overall, I like him. I think he turned out to be a fun character that's also helpful to the others. The school president, or Rin, is another cool character in the cast. She is a shy person, but when she sings with her heart out. She's a charming character, and I like her story feeling guilty for her friend's death, as she feels it was her fault. Her friend died in a car accident after Rin called her friend's mother to come pick up Rin, and doing so, they crashed. The mother survived, but the daughter did not. Rin has always felt regret ever since, but it gets resolved with her friend forgiving her and turning into this thing. I don't know what this thing is supposed to be. This kind of creeps me out, honestly.
This is disgusting.
The two next characters are the cop and Suma. Both had a very rough life, with Suma's father dying after having been overworked, but Suma's mother was being blamed for his death. Then after that, his brother dies trying to get an umbrella in the ocean. After losing her husband and son, she could not take it anymore and tried to kill herself alongside Suma on a train track, but Suma escaped from her hands, but she ended up dead. Alongside being bullied a lot, becoming an orphan and being arrested at a very young age, his life has been extremely tough. One day, the cop who arrested him when he was younger decides to become his guardian and take him in. At first, they don't get along. Suma tries to always fight him and beat him and doesn't really respect his rules. But that's when we get to know that the cop also had a family, with a wife and daughter that died due to an angry maniac wanting to take revenge on the system. Despite how angry he was and wanting to kill the murderer, he just simply couldn't, as the image of his daughter will always pop into his head when he was thinking about it, and as such he doesn't want any more deaths. So he wants to protect Suma with his life. Both of these two have had unfair lives and lost loved ones, but that doesn't mean they should end their own. I like the relationship between Suma and the cop because they act like brothers, with the cop being his older brother. Suma also gets some really fun interaction with Momo and they bounce off each other really well, but Suma and cop's relation definitely shines the most. Accompanying the great characters also come with the great designs. I also especially love the designs of the different creatures and monsters they're fighting. Like some of these yokais and aliens just look so fantastic. And then there's also just a xenomorph. Like, I don't know why it's just it's just a xenomorph. Not only design wise are they great, but they can also be quite terrifying. But no yokai comes close to the creepiness that is Reiko Kashima. Momo, alongside her alien friend, stumbles upon an empty area where Rika appears, the strongest yokai in the world. The only one Momo's grandma has never ever been able to defeat. Momo, stumbling upon her and having confrontation, says her name 10 times and then she disappears, but only for a little bit, as for a whole week Riku would do anything to get to Momo, and it's terrifying. The first night she hears Okarun's voice confessing his love to her and tells her to meet her outside. Momo realizes it's not Okarun but actually Riku in disguise, so she sets in, but Riku screams at her the whole night. Every night for the week, she tries to get her, and while Momo does manage to avoid her, they do actually meet up at the final night. And when she's about to take Momo, a bunch of aliens start attacking and she's not having it. She blasts them and traps them all in the mirror in seconds, like a whole alien invasion defeated in mere seconds. That's how powerful she is. But the weirdest thing about this account is that despite her finally having a chance to take Momo, she doesn't. During the moment when she's about to take Momo, Okarun comes in and begs for Rika to take him instead. But in response, Momo says that she wants to be taken. They argue and Rika, she just leaves. I didn't really understand at first why she left Momo, but when she later came back in a different form, I started to understand. Okarun trying to get Rika to take him instead of Momo evoked something in Rika. She saw how he loved her and how much Momo loved him, despite them not having confessed to each other, which is why she now wants to try and find love too. The reason I talk a lot about her is that she is still not defeated. She's too powerful to defeat, and thankfully Momo did get away this time, but who is to say she will be lucky next time they meet? I really find Riku a really interesting antagonist and I hope to see her again. Or kinda not, she's actually really terrifying. There's also another character that did appear later in the manga, and after the last chapter that got released, he does really seem like he's going to be a very interesting character. Having killed a very powerful yokai and stealing their powers, he might become the big next antagonist in next chapters. Currently there's 162 chapters, and funny enough, the last line that dropped is familiar with Dandadan.
He said it!
So that was pretty much Dandadan, an absolutely fantastic manga that I had such a good time reading. As of the time of the release on this video, the anime will soon air its first season and it does look amazing. Especially opening, oh my god, it looks so good. So either wait for the anime release because it's probably going to be amazing, or start reading the manga. It's still going on, but I do feel like we're kind of nearing the end, because like in the last chapter, we did find Okarun's second ball, so maybe it's not long before it ends, but oh no. Without my Dandadan, life has no meaning. So thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you next time.